Don't go.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc podcast.
I took the blows and did it my way.
It's time. The VinnyRoc podcast.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Vincent Vargas, obviously, with the VinnyRoc podcast. We just want to say thank you for everyone who's been supporting us and watching us, who's subscribed to our YouTube channel where you can watch the full length of our podcast. We're having a little bit of trouble with Spotify right now. We're working that out. We haven't uploaded probably the past 5 episodes, so that's just a pain in my ass that we're working on. Either way, just want to take this time to talk about several of my sponsors. You guys already know one of my main ones is Core Medical Group. I've been with Core Medical Group for about 6 years. They're outstanding. They work with a lot of the military and veterans and special operations communities all around you, the people that you are near and dear to. Core Medical Group services them. Is one of the most important things men can do for their mental health is get their blood work checked yearly. So if you guys have any questions, hit me up about Core Medical Group. But another one of my sponsors is GMR Gold and Bullion Box. GMR Gold is a company that sells precious metals, gold and silver. Currently, right now, you guys already know the trends. There's gold is through the roof right now, and what the value is of it. I enjoy buying my subscription-based model with the Bullion Box, monthly subscriptions coming to my house, so me and the kids can enjoy, open it up, and have some good times with it. I've obviously hit some before in the past. I'm going to hit some more in the hide some more in the future, so you guys can go enjoy doing a little bit of a treasure hunt because I enjoy doing things like that for y'all. Another one of our sponsors is Modern Gun School. It is an online from your own home, learn how to be an armor. Right, this school has all the certifications you need to be an armor. You can do this at the comfort of your own home. They take the GI Bill. They take the vocational rehab benefit as well. So you guys have any questions, trust me, this is a really good company. Several of my close friends have used this and been super proud of it and super excited about it. So if you guys are interested in being armors in the comfort of your own home, please go check them out. As well as Everest.com. Everest.com is a trading post for outdoor goods. If you guys are outdoorsmen, if you guys like to camp, hunt, fish, you can find everything you need at Everest.com. Go check them out. We have several other sponsors coming on board here soon. We're really excited about them. I'll talk to you about those later on. But right now, we're just super excited about the growth of the podcast, and we want to continue to grow this podcast. So please like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go check it out on iTunes or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for being a guest or for being a fan and supporter of the VinnyRoc podcast. Take care.
Welcome to the VinnyRoc podcast, y'all. If you guys are listening, I have a good buddy of mine. He worked with us on the Light Diffuse retreat. We met years ago. Actually, you know, my cousin was the one who introduced us.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arash, right? Yeah. And so this
Good
is
guy.
Brady Pesola, correct?
Yeah. Pesola, yeah.
Pesola. And so just kind of bring you up to speed, we've been kind of working together. I've seen his social media. I've been watching what he does, the Gray Man Project. And pretty interesting because I'm like, oh, this is a veteran who's kind of taking a completely different approach to what most veterans do, more of a philosophical approach and to Stoicism, which then I started looking more into Stoicism because it would kind of introduce the idea. And then when we brought you to speak and be a part of the Light Diffuse retreat, I saw how valuable it was for everyone to kind of see a different perspective. And for full transparency, I wanted to bring a lot of thought leaders to that retreat so they can give their piece of what they're experienced and I guess like a thought leader in their profession or their expertise to hopefully give other people a chance to see a different perspective of how to view life, right? I think what we have a lot of guys who are kind of trying to find their own way, right? And find their own thought process or maybe in a mindset currently that is more in the victimization of life and putting them in kind of the Debbie Downer spirals. And so bringing guys like Matt Larson, bringing guys like you, and bringing guys like Carl Monger are experts in their field. And for me, I don't know if I can say this correctly, but you are kind of the expert in my world in Stoicism.
I always had the term expert because it always implies that you know everything there is to know about a subject. So I always like to call myself a student, a knowledgeable student, and trying to find my way to perfect the things that I know. Because when I used to teach survival, I always had that term survival expert.
Right.
And always everyone, I'm a survival expert here on Discover Channel. You know, and I'm like, I hate that because everyone thinks that, they're an expert. It's just like, dude, knowledge is ever learning. I always like to call myself just an experienced student. And when it comes to Stoicism, I wouldn't even call myself an expert in it, just because I've only been studying for about 7-8 years, and I'm really only the last couple of years have been really digging hard into it. And sometimes I do find my way off the path and have to find my way back on the path, because it's one of those things. It's not you just pick up the book, you read through the book, and you go, okay, I'm a Stoic now. No, it's constant practice. It's one of those things. It's a design for living. So when you get into Stoicism, you have to adopt the lifestyle. You have to look at the readings and teachings of Stoicism and go, okay, I'm going to adopt these words. I'm going to adopt these exercises that they talk about and the words they talk about in these books. And for me, there's a lot of different people within our community, the veteran community, the tactical community, the shooter community, and people constantly talk about going through therapy and going through talking to therapists and counselors, which I would never dissuade anybody from doing. Right. But Stoicism for me is an enhancement on that. It allows you to get into a different mindset, like you were saying, and this mindset is. You ever talk to somebody, you say, hey, man, I want to bounce something off you, because inside your head, you got one perspective and that's it. Yeah. And you're trying to bounce it off another person. Well, that's what Stoicism does. It offers you a different perspective to get you out of your head and allow you to focus more on the rational side of things, the logical side of things, to help you kind of clear away that clouding, the judgment that's been clouding your mind. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, I call it like a little injection of logic into this disease called emotion. And I'm not saying anything's bad with emotion, right?
I like the way you said that.
Yeah, because people always like, what's wrong with emotion? Absolutely nothing. It's what makes us beautiful as human beings.
Yeah, but emotion could be what drives people to have specific, I guess, energy towards things that are probably not so healthy. Warranted. Right.
Yeah. Right. People tend to these days try and use emotions as a standard for morality. If you don't feel like I do, then you're a piece of crap. If you don't feel like I do, you're wrong. And that's not right at all, because we all come from these different backgrounds and religions and ethnicities and modalities and jobs. And we always have these different, even political biases. Nothing wrong with emotions. Emotions are what make us human beings. Love, lust, anger, sadness, grief. That's what makes life beautiful, right? But just like we never want to make decisions under the influence of drugs and alcohol, we should also agree that we should never make decisions under the influence of emotion, especially when we need to make tactical decisions in our lives.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let me back up a little bit. Because those who are listening, probably the first time they ever heard of Stoicism, right? Because I remember the first time I was like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. And I started digging into like, how do you define it? Who created this? What is it? Would you give us the kind of, I guess, the beginnings of Stoicism and kind of how it came to be something that you've fallen into?
It definitely falls from Socratic philosophy. It's probably, started around, there's a guy named Zeno. And Zeno was a Phoenician merchant who crashed, ended up somewhere in Greece, swam his way to shore, found, and this is the story goes, obviously over thousands of years, the story is either written in text and translated from different things, Greek and Roman and on and on and on. But Stoicism is about a 2,500-year-old philosophy. It started a bit before even Christ. But Stoicism found its height at the same time that Christianity found its height as well, which is interesting if you go back and read it. It's really interesting because even the Bible mentions the Stoics.
Really?
It does. And a lot of Christianity, and you're gonna hear some comments from this one because I've been lit up before by Christians, and I do consider myself a Christian, right?
Right.
And we'll talk about that later. But when it comes to Zeno, the story goes he washed up on shore. He found himself his way into a library, and he was reading. All these different philosophies and philosophers, and he asked the librarian, where do I find one of these philosophers? And just so happens that Xenophon was walking right by, and he goes, there's one right there. And he goes out and talks to Xenophon, and all of a sudden, over practice and over years, Zeno becomes more of a philosopher. Now, the term Stoicism, Stoa, means painted porch. And there's actually the painted porch where they used to practice this still in Greece. It's like, think of an outdoor strip mall kind of thing. They got food, they got this area here, they got Saboro, they got, Penn Express. Well, the old Greek version of it, right? And so they call themselves Stoics because they would talk about their philosophy on the painted porch, which is called a Stoa. And originally it was called Zenoism. And then they changed it over years, and then you got Chrysippus and I'm going to butcher some of these Greek names because fucking Marine. And it goes down, but the three big names that bring it forefront, that the works have survived the most, because a lot of the ancient works of Chrysippus and Cleanses and Zeno are now more fragments mentioned in other works of peoples, right? But the ones works still survive are Epictetus, Seneca the Younger, and the big one that most people tend to recognize more is Marcus Aurelius.
And so from the beginning of it till Marcus Aurelius, how far apart is that? Like when did he become a big part of the Stoicism movement?
Well, yeah. So I think Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome from 161 to 180 AD. And I think Zeno started around 390 BC. I think, I don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not good with dates. Sometimes my contextual memory is a little, but it's, and then you had a resurgence of Stoicism called the Neo-Stoicism, the 1600s, where a lot of Christians were starting to take Stoic philosophy and try and combine it together to create.
I want to talk about that later for sure.
I've been lit up a few times, and I've had these conversations, and it's been well received. I have a buddy of mine, a really good friend of mine, that always challenges me, on it, which I love. I love the challenge, But for me, I don't deny Christ or deny God. I just think I can go better in life with a Stoic book in my left hand and a Bible in my right.
Yeah, it's funny because right before you got here, obviously there was Doc, and Doc he believes in the path of psychedelics, and I asked him the question, like, how does that feel when you're digging deep into psychedelics? Does that relate to like God, right? And so he goes, yeah, it gets complicated. It's like, when you start digging for enlightenment, you start to really kind of blur the lines a little bit in how you perceive God, and I believe in Jesus too, as well as a Christian man. But also, I study everything and have questions about everything.
The way I see it, God created all the knowledge in the universe, and if He didn't want that knowledge to be found by our little human brains capable of the basics of reason, then He wouldn't have created the knowledge like that the philosophers did, that led a lot of us to math and science and those things that we can help ourselves with. In my opinion, I'll admit I was never born or given the gift of faith. I've always been a person of doubt most of my whole life. And so it was through Stoicism that I found my way back to God, actually through reason and logic. I had to rationalize God in a certain way. And because it's funny, we always heard that term, that kind of that cop out where everyone says, well, things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
And in Stoicism, they often say things happen according to reason, according to nature, according to logos. And then I made the mistake one time of going, well, whose reason? Oh, shit. That's a damn fine question. Just that one question itself. Okay, so, and for me, it was like, okay, if God is capable of reason, is reason is the defining creator of reason, and we human beings possess a capability for reason. We then share a piece of the divine, as the Stoics say,
as we're all connected.
Yeah, because rationality and reason, these things are what helps us move through life. And even the Stoics say that, all those who practice reason are good. Those who reject reason are evil. And so for me, it made a lot more sense.
That someone put this innate belief in us or gave us a boundary, if you will, right?
Well, it's funny is a lot of older, philosophers always argue between priori and a priori knowledge, which is innate knowledge or knowledge given to you by God. And then old Immanuel Kant, yes, K-A-N-T, not Kant. Yeah, because when I was in philosophy, I had to sit there and go, what?
Yeah, please pronounce that one more time.
Immanuel Kant kind of took it and coming together. It's like we have innate knowledge for us to be able to process knowledge that we've been given from God. And so for me, everyone has their way of talking about Christianity or the way they practice Christianity.
Yeah.
And obviously there isn't one correct way because you have all these different modalities. You have Catholicism, you have Lutherans, which is where my background comes from, all the Scandinavians and Finlanders and Norwegians and everyone that went to northern Minnesota, all a bunch of Lutherans, and then you have Episcopalian, you have Methodists, you have Baptists. So there isn't one agreement on how to go about it. So the way I see it is, yes, God exists. And he is there, and he created us, and he gave us the ability to understand his reasoning and the knowledge that he provides us for us to help ourselves, like knowledge. To me, science isn't void of God. It's a creation of God. Why wouldn't God give us the ability to help ourselves, to medicate ourselves, to heal ourselves physically? Yeah. Leave the spiritual healing to Jesus and God, but physically, we got to take care of ourselves. Yeah. We have to be able to, build buildings. We need math. We need science, and these things come from the ancient philosophers. They always practice in ethics, ethos, logos, and physics. And look at Pythagoras. Was a well-known philosopher, but most people know him for Pythagorean theorem. A lot of math comes from philosophers. Yeah. And even it's funny, the Catholic Church uses Platonism and the Plato's idea that the earth was the center of the universe. And the Catholics believed that for a long time, and then Galileo came along, and they almost smoked him. You know what I mean? So a lot of our history, we should pay homage to philosophy, because philosophy and religion overlap a lot. Yeah, absolutely a lot. And I think to deny philosophy is, for me, to deny the beauty of the knowledge that God created for us to be able to use to help ourselves.
Philosophy is fascinating, man. I love it. It's the hardest thing for me to grasp as well as to digest, but it is when you start to hear more and learn more, same as like the Stoicism, the philosophy of Stoicism. It's like, oh man, that was kind of common sense. you know?
It is. And when we talk about philosophy, everyone has this weird way of thinking that philosophy is a bunch of potheads in the basement going, yo, so what do you think about it like this, man? It's nothing to do with that, And look, there is philosophy that is complicated. There's philosophy out there. You're going, like, if you ever want to have a real, just interesting mind fuck one day, read about solipsism. Solipsism is the idea that you and you alone exist, and everything around you is created for you alone. So think of it like this: right now, you looking at me, I was created for this environment, for this event, for you to live, and you're the only person living. You're the only person. You're the universe. So like, and everything else is created like a video game, like everything.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It almost, it falls in line with the whole we're here in a simulation.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I was thinking about it on the plane over here, and I know we'll probably get into it, because I was looking in the desert. And I'm like, there's grid lines and roads in the desert, and there's no houses out there. I'm like, how are we not we're definitely not. We're not in base reality. I mean, I think we're far away from base reality. But we're going to get into that part of philosophy. But before we do, let me mention that what is philosophy? Philosophy, the love of wisdom. Who doesn't love to be wise? Who doesn't want to be wise? Who wants to be stuck in ignorance? Who wants to be stuck in darkness? Who wants to be stuck and walking around an emotional ape, that is just constantly full of anxiety? I mean, that's what we humans are. We're just a bunch of bipeds with anxiety constantly, and we're trying to figure out what to do with our lives. I mean, look at the reason why philosophy exists is because back in the day in Greece and Roman times, people think, oh, it's great, not unless you were part of the equestrian class or part of the senators or the upper class, but if you were a peasant back then, you're walking down the street, people are throwing shit on you from the roofs above. Literally throwing, they're defecating the streets. And so people are like, why do I feel like shit all the time? Well, so that's why they come up with philosophy, because they didn't have medication, they didn't have psychology, they had watered down wine and philosophy, and you got at great thinkers and people like, why am I feeling this way? And how do I better myself? And how do I become better as a human being? And how do I get past these adversities? Because
and what's the meaning of life?
Oh, right. Yeah. All right. My opinion on that is as the meaning of life is just simply a life of meaning. That's it. Find meaning in your life. That is the meaning. And as fathers, I think, we've come to look at that and go, okay.
I think that gave us an easier definition of life. But
yeah.
It's like, okay, this is my definition.
Before then, because we all get out of the military and we're like, what the fuck do I do now? What do I mean? Because in the military, you had something. There was either a traditional meaning to something or a tactical meaning to something.
Yeah.
Everything you did was according to traditions or because it was part of the mission. You get out and you're like, what's my fucking mission now? I don't fucking know. But you'll never go back because I tell you, I was getting in the Marine Corps, this captain, he said, you're going to end up right back here just like everybody else does. I'm like, oh, that's a fucking great speech there, bud.
Man, I got the same.
Yeah, you're going to end up right back here. And I'm like, I'm the worst person to tell me that I can't do something. My ADHD fucking gets me going sometimes. You tell me I can't do something, like, watch me, bitch.
Yeah, I'm the same, dude. I'm the same.
But with philosophy, who doesn't want to love, to be wise? It's not as scary as you think it is, as long as you look at it as a way of trying to just be a better person, understand yourself.
Where does Stoicism fall into philosophy? Is it just a branch of philosophy?
Well, philosophy has different modalities, right? You have Cartesian philosophy, you have Stoicism, you have cynicism, skepticism, Platonism, Aristotelism, whatever. I'm butchering that. Yes. Socratic. There's all these different philosophies. Even Islam is a philosophy.
Yeah.
Christianity is a philosophy. It's about being wise. Some are more oriented towards, the afterlife. Some are more oriented here in the current life, Buddhism and Taoism and Hinduism, all philosophy. Stoicism is a Hellenistic philosophy. There were three philosophies that kind of came into play after, Alexander the Great kind of went on. And there's three Hellenistic philosophies kind of broke off. And that is cynicism, Epicureanism, and Stoicism. And cynicism...
I was going to say, what are the differences?
Yeah, cynicism is actually referenced quite a bit by Stoics. Actually, there's a guy named Diogenes who used to troll the shit out of Plato. Yeah, Plato, the story goes that Plato used to talk about man is simply stripped down chicken. So Diogenes went and fucking plucked a chicken, went into the middle of the class while Plato's going, released the chicken into the classroom and said, behold, Plato's man. So that's the story it goes. And then Diogenes also, the story goes that Alexander the Great saw Diogenes. Now, Diogenes is kind of a weird, crazy ass dude. He used to just jerk off in public and live in a wine pot.
Oh,
shit. Yeah. He said, what? He's like, you guys, you do it inside. I do it in public. What's the difference? You see each other do it all the time. You got to watch me, so he was a little weird. He's a little off the, a little out there, but the way it goes, the story is that Alexander the Great had walked past and saw Diogenes and stepped over the top of him with his generals. And he said, hey, everyone, this is Diogenes. And Diogenes, I love you. I think you're a great philosopher. And I'm paraphrasing. You're a great philosopher. I love you to death. You can have anything you want. What can I grant you that you can have anything in life? He simply just was like, and imagine a dude just sitting there, laying back with his legs crossed over, I like to picture him with a set of sunglasses when he says that. And to me, in my head, he drops down his sunglasses, which never was invented, obviously, goes, I just wish for you to move out of the sun. That's all he wanted. He just wanted sunlight. And the story continues to go that Alexander the Great laughed and he said, see, the great Diogenes, if I ever die and can come back, I want to come back as Diogenes. He's like, yeah, I'd want to come back as Diogenes too. Just as cocky. But also the story goes with cynicism is, for him it's a lot about minimalism and constantly being able to question yourself and your involvement in the environment around you. And it's self-analysis is what it is. People think, a cynic, you just doubt everything. No, it's just analysis to better understand things and see things with a different mindset. And it lends a lot to Stoicism. Stoicism has borrowed a lot from cynicism on that self-analysis, creating a different mindset. And then you got Epicureanism. which is, people tend to relate to hedonism, where Epicureanism is more a rejection, or it said that pleasure is the highest good. But people hear that and they go, well, they're just, having sex and drinking all the time. That's not it. What Epicurus was about was like pleasure the highest good without sacrificing your own morals, without sacrificing yourself. To achieve pleasure, to enjoy pleasure, sure, pleasure is good, but do not sacrifice your dignity. Do not sacrifice your virtues.
Yeah.
Whereas Stoicism is a rejection of pleasure, and that virtue is the highest good. And you achieve happiness through the pursuit of virtue, which is wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance, and using those 4 cardinal virtues to find what they call eudaimonia.
What are those 4 virtues one more time?
Wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. And that will lead you to what they call eudaimonia, which is Stoic happiness. And what Stoicism means with those 4 virtues of wisdom, which is, you would see Epictetus say in his book, he's like, there are things which are within your control and things beyond your control. And it boils down to dismiss what's out of your control. You can do nothing about that. Right. There's things, your reputation, your health, you can certainly try and influence things, but you have to release your attachment to the outcome and allow the outcome to happen as it is. And so what's within your control are simply boiled down to 2 things: your emotions and subsequently your actions. And that is it. And when you can control your emotions and you don't let your actions be clouded by your emotions, then you have a chance to influence an outcome that is better for you in the end. How many times have people done things under the influence of emotion where it got worse for them? The consequences were
like
worse.
a fight at the bar. You know
fight
what I mean?
at the bar. Their ego, their anger, their pride, everything got a hold and they got to fight at the bar. Now they're in jail. Now they lost their gun rights. Whatever it is that you've done, the outcome is just getting worse and worse and worse until you control your emotions and stop reacting to your emotions and start acting under the influence of logic. Our brain has that ability. Our brain is split. We have the limbic system and we have the cerebral cortex. Obviously, there's a lot more going on in there. I'm not a neuroscientist, so for those watching now going, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I went to semester one time for psychology.
Why'd you do that voice?
I have no idea, man.
Like, go ahead,
I have no idea. I'm kidding, bro. I can do a Minnesota accent, which sounds more like a Letterkenny accent than anything else. But back in the day, I did see a counselor once, and this is what got me into Stoicism. Was I tried to see a counselor. I had some emotional adversity, and one day I'll talk about all that. And I decided not to quite yet, but I once saw a counselor, and they just weren't listening to me. It just didn't seem like they care. And you got one chance with me.
Yeah, it's one of those where a lot of them do kind of the blanket answer for everyone.
Yeah.
And they're like, you're not listening, dude.
And this gal she barely even looked up at me. She had her back to me most of the time, and I was just yammering on, and I wasn't into it. And so my old man always say, you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. So I started studying into figure out what was going on in my brain. Why do I feel the way I do? Started Googling, bad feelings, and then turned into anxiety or this or that or what it was. And then cognitive behavioral therapy and then this and, understanding the brain. I started getting I went on an ADHD, like dopamine driven super dive down into like this whole idea of what psychology was, what physiology was of the mind, why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and how my brain operates. And it wasn't until a couple years after that, then I saw this quote by Seneca that drove me into Stoicism. And the quote was, we are often more frightened than hurt. We suffer more in imagination than we do reality. Mm. And I was like, the most simplest quote. I was like, I do often like, you suffer more in imagination. You are more often frightened than hurt. Frightened than actually hurt inside our own minds. We are more frightened than we actually physically hurt. We suffer more in our imaginations than we do in actual reality. We always play the worst case scenario in our minds. We always do. And it always turns out fine, doesn't it?
And that's wild because, you've already suffered something that has not even existed yet.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, and Seneca says, it's like he who suffers in the future suffers now. Because you're constantly worrying about the future and it strips you of the present moment. Marcus Aurelius says, what do you say? He's like, don't ever worry about the future, because you have the tools of reason that help you combat today will help you combat the future. You use your tools of reason. And we've all forged our own tools, our own coping tools in the furnace of adversity, you know? And so when I saw that quote, I was like, yeah, I do really make a lot of shit up in my head, like a lot and all the time. And half the time, none of it comes to fruition. None of it, like, what am I fucking worried about all the time? Right? So then I found that, and then I started getting into philosophy. I started studying Seneca the Younger and Marcus Aurelius, and I started studying Epictetus. And I think what was more important to me was not just studying the philosophy and the words, but studying the men behind the words and why they were writing these things. Why would you write these things that are so profound? What motivates you? You have to have intent. You have to have motivation to write these things. And what it was is you go through and read the stories of these men. They've all gone through adversity. Adversity is what sparked these writings.
Right.
So studying Seneca with that quote, we are more often frightened than hurt. We suffer more in imagination than reality. It's such a rational thing to say because it's so true. And so I started reading about Seneca the Younger. And then I found my way to Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. And then I started looking at a lot of YouTube videos, and a lot of YouTube videos were really like breaking it down, because you can read books, but when you think and learn like I do, you got to have a visual.
Yeah.
You got to look at all these different aspects to be able to study it. For me, what the books are a nice retreat into the world of Stoicism to, again, like I said before, inject a little bit of logic into your brain. And when I was studying about my brain, I really got into understanding the limbic system. And the limbic system is our primitive brain. It's how we react. It's responsible for our emotional reaction to external stimuli. Yeah. And then I read about the cerebral cortex, which is our rational mind, which is responsible for higher cognitive rational thought. And then I started kind of think to myself, it's like, well, Stoicism seems like a tool of the cerebral cortex to combat the response of the limbic system. There's a psychological tool there. And if you look into the history of Stoicism, that its roots, or the cognitive behavioral therapy's roots, go to Stoicism. Most of it. Really? A lot of people will say that it comes from Marcus Aurelius, because it's changing your mindset, it's changing the way you think about things. And that's what Marcus Aurelius tries to do in his diary. And his diary, Meditations, isn't a book that was meant to be published. It was his diary. You're reading the words of an emperor who was probably one of the loneliest men, because all he wanted to do was just be a philosopher. And he happened to have this unfortunate fate of having to become an emperor. And that's...
What was it that drove him to philosophy or to writing his journal?
He was studied as a kid, or he studied a lot as a kid. He was adopted by his great grandfather, the Antonites, and and they gave him an education. He had the rhetoricians that came in, and he despised them. He didn't like them very much, and he liked the Stoics. And what's cool is if you look into Meditations, when you read it, when you start opening it open, you see that he references Epictetus a lot. And Epictetus was a slave. That's what the name Epictetus means, to be owned. And that's what you have in front of you. Yeah. And Epictetus had a bum leg because his owner beat the living hell out of him once and fucked his leg up pretty bad. But what I like about Epictetus is, like, you have the power of your mind. It's like sickness and lameness are a problem of the body, not of the mind. It shouldn't stop you from being a rational, logical person. So no matter what's happening in your body, it shouldn't affect your mind.
Damn.
And I love that. So you have an emperor who is referencing a slave, and that's what I love about Stoicism. It doesn't not matter who you are within that field. Everyone read. You look at Seneca the Younger, which I'm not... I like some of his readings, his letters. It's all about his letters that he written, and he wrote a couple different things about his brother or to his brother. But Seneca the Younger was an advisor to Nero, and Nero was an asshole. Nero killed his mom and then had Seneca write a speech about it.
Oh my God.
I swear to God. And then Seneca got caught up a little bit in Nero and some sort of plots against Nero, whether he's guilty or not. But Nero had him actually open his veins and kill himself. So,
wow.
Yeah, it is wild. But this will drag us a little bit back to Christianity, but but Seneca's biological brother is Gallio, who was a prefect consul from 51 to 52 AD. People know him in the Bible because that's when the Jews brought Paul before Gallio to have Paul, prosecuted for spreading Christianity. And Gallio was like, fucking give a shit. So they took him outside and beat the fuck out of him. But that is Seneca the Younger's biological brother.
Damn.
And so there's a bit of crossover in Stoicism to Christianity. That's why I always think it's like, I don't think it's such a bad thing that one should use either to just become better.
I mean, if you are Stoic, you're living a life of meaning and as well as with virtue, which means that's aligned with living the life of what Christ would want.
There are 4 virtues of Christianity: wisdom, courage, justice, and restraint. The Stoics use temperance, obviously.
Yeah.
But, even the term the logos, things happen according to the logos. Well, what's the logos in Christianity? It's the word of God.
Yeah.
And Stoics use the term logos, according to nature, according to God. And they reference God quite a bit. Obviously, back then, a lot were polytheistic, Greek side or Roman side. It was either Jupiter or Zeus or whoever believed in. But for them, a lot of the Stoics, they were a one God kind of guy, like Zeus or whoever. But even then, they said, there is a God, and the God is creator of the universe, and things happen according to nature, and so it kind of flips back and forth depending on, what verse you read or who you read. But they all agree that things happen according to God.
So you read one quote, and now it puts you down this path.
It did, because that one quote made me feel so different at that moment. Like
counseling didn't work, right?
Counseling didn't work. Like I said, you want things done right, you got to do it yourself. You got to study yourself, and you got to research, because otherwise, if you just go through life ignorant of really how your brain works, and that's what made me want to bring it to our community as a tactical tool, because everyone says the mind is the greatest weapon, yet they know how to troubleshoot their rifle better than they do how to troubleshoot their own mind.
Yeah, we have no idea. No one has anything, right? We just started learning breathing. We just started learning, like, people are finally open to different modalities of healing and breathing and meditation, because before that was foo-foo shit.
Exactly.
Right? And so that's funny you say that.
And what's funny is I think I saw this meme now. It's like, it used to be the nerds were all about philosophy. Now it's the jocks are getting into holistic medicine and healing and philosophy. It's like,
also it's the cool thing. Yeah, it's the cool thing.
Are you double strapping it, bro? Are you double strapping your backpack, bro? Nerd. It's return a bunch of nerds. But really, it took me down the path, and it really brought me a different mindset. And it's a continuous practice. You don't stop. Even Epictetus mentions that you don't show how far you've gone by read books. You live it. You adopt it. It becomes a way of life. You have to wake up in the morning and start your morning exercises. Marcus Aurelius says, when you wake up in the morning, tell yourself you're going to meet a lot of shitty people throughout the day, but they're just like you, because you both possess the capability for reason and the capability for evil. And he says that, I've seen the beauty of good, and I've seen the ugliness of evil. And to go against my brother who does the same thing is unnatural. We work together like 2 rows of teeth,
It's so wild. Just before this, I had the podcast with Doc Askins, and he talked about one of his psychedelic trips. And one of the psychedelic trips, he was reliving an experience over and over again in different forms. And every time, so he was the person who was dying of some kind of illness. Then he was also the person driving that guy to go to a doctor to try and find the answer. So he's feeling both those pains, both of them empathetic kind of ideas. Right. Then when he pulls up to the doctor's office, he sees the doctor. When he connects eyes with the doctor, he becomes the doctor, and the doctor's sitting there thinking like, oh shit, I have a wife who wants to leave me, this and that. And so the whole thing to him was like, everyone's looking for that person, and everyone is the person as well as also just a person. Yeah. And then the same ideology is what you're saying is like, we're all just human going through shit, and, good and bad. we're people, you know.
We all suffer from the human condition, to which there is no cure. There is no cure, because, like I said, we are just a bunch of apes full of anxiety walking around on 2 feet. You know, for me, Stoicism is a continuous treatment of the human condition.
It feels like a grounding.
It does.
That's, to me, it feels like more like a grounding that's needed to this chaotic world of chaotic thoughts, of everyone getting pulled left and right. One year it's good to eat salt, the next year it's not. You know what I mean? It's all these different information coming, and it can get very loose and wild. And I think it's a really cool way of grounding yourself and saying, okay, I'm human. People suck sometimes, and people are good sometimes. And I should just worry about how I face life.
Like you said, people suck, but also we have to turn that inward as well and look at ourselves.
Yeah, but so do I.
Yeah, I suck too. And that's what Marcus Aurelius talks about quite a bit. He's like, I'm an imperfect person. I suck too, and I can be better. But he also says that humans are our proper occupation. Either teach them, or either teach them, or just, love them for who they are.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard to really accept people for who they are, because we see evil, but the other side of that is we can look at them and say, well, they still possess a capability for a reason. That's what makes them, has a potential to be good. Every single one of us has a potential for a reason to be good people, to practice the 4 virtues. And when we see that, we can see the faults in ourselves, and we see, well, I possess a capability for evil as well, but I'm choosing reason because I want to be good. And
that's like an extremely trained shooter.
Yeah.
An extremely trained hand-to-hand combat fighter. They have the ability to take life. A sniper, ability to right now, if you're trained, you can shoot anyone you want, but you choose not to, right? You choose to use it in a way that is hopefully justified and with virtue.
Right. And isn't that what Jordan Peterson is like? A dangerous man is a peaceful man is not a good man. A good man is a man capable of violence that has it under control. And I love that. Yeah,
I think it's so right. Is I have the ability to do harm. I choose not to until the moment I need to.
It's reserved towards the evils of that we've experienced, because we're too busy trying to find peace for ourselves. We don't want to be out there anymore. I mean, we wore a uniform once and we were looking to cause hate and discontent. Send us in, coach.
Yeah, the young version of me was like, fuck it.
Let's do it. Yeah. Let's do it. Now as we're fathers and husbands and men trying to make an impact on our community, like you're making an impact on your community and me trying to make an impact on mine. Or I think we share quite a bit of the same community, and if not all of it. And we're just trying to... We're not trying to teach people because we figured it out. What we're trying to teach people is what we figured out so far.
Yes. That's so fucking cool you said that, because I always feel like I don't have all the answers, bro. I'm still learning. Yeah. But what I have learned so far, let me help you.
Right. It's an infinite path, and we see people behind us that are struggling on their path. And so it's one of those things where you see someone and you just want to grab them by the pack. It's like, all right, I'm a little further than you. Come up here. This is how I want you to catch up to me. Yeah. And we want people to catch up to us.
What I've noticed is that everyone's on a different part or a different phase of their transition or their path to enlightenment or growth. Right. And so you'll see guys and be like, oh, he's there. He's at that stage where they're drinking still and they're angry. And then, you know what I mean? And then you'll see further down, you're like, oh, he's at that stage. Okay, cool. And then I see others, I'm like, oh, I want to get to that stage, right? Like, that's where I want to get to, right? I'm in this phase here where I want to get to here. But now I see people and I'm like, oh, I know where he's at. And I'll reach out to guys, be like, hey, dude, you want to join us? Or, hey, do you need any help? And they either choose or they don't, right? It's that, some people are ready or they won't be. And I wasn't ready at times. There was guys who reached to me and said, hey, dude, you should probably stop drinking. I'm like, bro. Right? Come on. I don't trust a man who doesn't drink. I was at that phase at one point, And so, man, it's crazy. We're all at different phases. I see these books here. Tell me about them.
These are the books that I carry around with me. It adds a little bit more weight in my pack, but it lightens the weight up here a little bit. And the reason I say this, I've been reading a guy named Musonius Rufus, who I call the prepper or farmer Stoic. He was Epictetus' teacher.
You can show it to that camera right there if you want to show the front of it.
Musonius Rufus. This is The Art of Living. It's a translation by Sharon Lobel. It's what you have in front of you.
Yes, I have it.
Epictetus, his book actually it's called Discourses, which is just a big, long lecture recorded by someone else. It wasn't never written by him. It was recorded by someone else. And then there was an abridged version called the Enchiridion, which literally means abridged. It means a handbook. It means handbook. And Admiral James B. Stockdale actually wrote a book about how he used Epictetus when he was shot down over Vietnam and spent 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton. So Admiral Stockdale used Epictetus. He said, when I ejected, I left the world as I know it and entered the world of Epictetus.
What was that book? There was a book that was...
Yeah, he wrote a book, and I forget. It's a long title.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. It's on my phone, but I'll give it.
I might have it.
Yeah.
I might have it.
Yeah, and he's got it. And he taught about Epictetus and how he used it. He was, for those wondering, a little further up the road, he might be more famous knowing as Ross Perot's running partner for president.
Yeah.
And that's when his reputation just kind of went to shit, unfortunately, but he passed away. But man, when you read that book and how he used Epictetus to survive and embraced adversity as it is and accepted things, Epictetus said, don't wish for things to happen as you want, wish for things to happen as they do, and you will find peace. So this is Sharon Lobel's version, which is kind of like more just a broken down Marine Corps Barney version.
Digestible
version. And there's some great ones in here, and you can see they're beat up. Like here, wisdom is revealed through action, not talk. He says, don't declare yourself to be a wise person or discuss your spiritual aspirations with people who won't appreciate them. Show your character and your commitment to personal ability through your actions.
Nice.
It's like acting non-verbal.
It's so simple, but it's so like,
it's so
yeah.
simple, and you're like, yeah, no shit. And there's ones in here. It's like, don't defend yourself when people disparage you. It debases your character. He says, one of my favorite things when people talk, people talk about us. People have talked about you. People have talked about me. I've had bad things said about me. Whatever it is, it's fine. That's right for them to do because that they did so from their own perception. That's okay. That doesn't make me wrong. It doesn't make them right. It doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make me right. But what Epictetus says is that when someone says that another person has spoken ill about you, rather than make excuses for what is said, reply, they must be ignorant of my other faults. Otherwise, they would not have mentioned these ones alone. It's kind of a smart ass.
Yeah, I like that.
So this is The Art of Living by Sharon Lobel that uses Epictetus' words. And then my favorite right here, and you can see this is beat up. The cover is starting to fall off because I carry this one with me everywhere I go because there's not a time where I can't open a book and you can see the markings inside of it that I have here. And there's great ones that, relate to veterans, to anyone else. It's just a great book to have, and this is one of the best tools that I've ever carried with me, and that's what I've got for you today. It's just,
I appreciate that.
So meditations, but as you see, the cover is falling off of it, right? So I have to get it replaced. So I bought another version. It's a hardback. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to throw this away. This stays at home now. But what I like about it is now I get to reread through it.
Nice.
And re-go through and re-highlight the ones I want to. So I get to go back and refresh myself like I do every day. Here I get to go back and refresh and rewrite and recircle. Plus it's a hardback, so it'll last a little bit longer than my backpack everywhere I go. And then lastly, you have Letters from a Stoic by Seneca the Younger. And these are letters that he's written to his to a good friend of his, and then back and forth and talking just about, what does he say? There's so much, on friendship, on death, on love, on marriage, on losing a child, and some of it is cold, very caustic. And it's like, damn, that's brutal. Like, damn. But it's like, yeah, we need to be brutal. And then one last book I didn't I gave it to a buddy of mine, and he's still reading it, thank God, and he loves reading it, so I'm not going to take it back from him, but was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Say that one more time.
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Now, Viktor Frankl was a neuropsychologist that suffered through the Holocaust at Auschwitz. Oh, shit. And one of my favorite things that brings me back to our topic on the brain and the physiology of the brain and the use of Stoicism. One of my favorite quotes, he said, between stimulus and response, there's space. In that space, you have the power to choose your response. And there lies your growth and your freedom. Now, that space to choose your response, right? So if we look at our limbic system, and this is where everyone's going to be like, on the drive home. So don't listen to this on the drive home because you will fall asleep. But no, limbic system, cerebral cortex. The limbic system has two routes that information takes from stimulus to response. Yep. There's the thalamus, and that information, the short route goes right to the amygdala, which is responsible for your training and your trauma. It's responsible for your reaction to external stimuli. So, for instance, give an example. Like someone comes up behind you and jolts you, scares you. Boom!
Yeah.
Right? You turn around, you bah, get into judo stance, right? That's the short route. It's from thalamus to amygdala. You're ready to pop someone, right? Then that information goes through your sensory cortex, sight, hearing, taste, touch. Not smell, though. Smell's connected to your amygdala. That's why, like, when you smell something, it brings back a memory.
Yes.
Like a cologne or leather or your old deuce gear or whatever it was. You're like, oh, or alcohol. You're like, oh, you're like, I'm not drinking that anymore, right? It's attached to your amygdala. That's what brings up those memories. It's smell. That's why we're always olfactory driven. But then the information goes to your hippocampus, which is responsible for contextual memory, names, dates, faces, things like that. And it's right at that hippocampus where you recognize your buddy that came up behind you. Yeah. And then it goes to the amygdala and you're making that decision like,
am I going to
I could get away with it so bad, but I'm not going to.
Right.
So back to what Viktor Frankl said is that, that's between stimulus and response, there's space. So that space is that long route that information takes. And that space isn't just thousandths of a second. Now that information travels thousands of a second or whatever the scientific name for something quicker than that, nanosecond, whatever it is. But it's not just a thousandth of a second. It can be, your response can be a second later, a minute later, an hour later, a day later, a week later, a fucking month, years down the road. You're giving yourself space to react. And there lies your growth and your freedom. So you don't have to react all the time because we can't control emotions flooding us, but we can control how we react to those emotions. By using that space. We can stop right there and say, oh, this guy said a word to me. Well, that's noise coming from their fucking mouth. This is noise. What is noise? I have the choice to accept that noise as disrespect. And if I've choose it as disrespect, then indeed I've been disrespected. And I can reject that and I can respond to that logically and go, yeah, that makes me angry. I want to hit the guy for saying this. Oh, you said something about my wife or my daughter. Okay. And how does that harm them? Yeah. It just harms my ego and my pride. My ego and my pride want to pop you in the face, but what's going to happen? This ain't the 50s anymore. People that do lawsuits nowadays. Yeah. And now you're just going to get more angry. Well,
not even
worse.
That. These days, there's kids that are getting stomped to death.
You see these guys slam. All they want to do is pick each other, slam them on the sidewalk. Like, dude, you're going to go to jail for that. Stop slamming each other on the sidewalk.
I tell my fear goes not to me anymore because I'm older and I think I'm more wise and I'm smarter. There's times I want to fucking fight someone because that's just what I was raised to do, and then I don't, and I probably drive home the whole time thinking like, I should have,
that's but like ego. That's I'm mad. I want to fight. Oh God, this fist. Right. I was a ranger. God damn it! I want to fuck you up. It's like I want to do this. Yeah, but same thing as the Marine in me. It's like, no Marine fucking chest would be rolling his fucking grave right now if he saw I just rolled over like that. And then, I go home to my wife and my daughter and go,
yeah, I'm glad I didn't.
10 out of 10, I'd rather be here than sitting in a holding cell right now.
I know. And then the other time, it's like my son's at school and, kids are fighting sometimes. He goes to a public school down the street and he's like, it's crazy, Dad, they're fighting. I was like, well, be smart enough not to. Like, you don't need to. There's no reason really to unless you have to. Unless you have to. Yeah, unless you have to.
And then you don't just win that fight. You win every single. What was it, Ender's Game, where he fucking beat the shit out of the kid? He goes, why'd you beat him continuously? And everyone's like, because I wasn't just winning that fight. I was winning every fight after that.
I tell him it's a psychological thing, dude.
Oh, it is.
Everybody watches like, oh, he's not afraid to fight. That's what wrestling is. He wrestles, and I tell him all the time, wrestling is just as old as any of these. But wrestling is a psychological advantage. The fact that you got onto the mat is a win. But if you go in there and you put a move on someone psychologically, that kid's gonna be like, I think I need to quit.
Yeah, I don't want.
I think I need to fold.
I didn't sign up for that. I didn't want that smoke, bro. And it's funny, a lot of the Stoics were boxers, wrestlers, and
that's what I was saying. It goes as old as he is.
But yeah, and when we start to get a hold of that space, when we start practicing more of using that space before we react, we're going to build that habit. Yeah. And that's going to become second nature to us. That's going to go into the amygdala, and that space is going to be that amygdala going, I don't need to react to that quite yet.
Yeah, we don't have enough of that as men, I think. I think we feel that we need to react, right? The manly and masculine thing is to react. But I think there's a time and a place for that. Right. But I think it gets a little loose for guys. One, if you're drinking, and two, if you're just kind of too machismo, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And that's where those 4 virtues come in. So I want to break down the 4 virtues.
Please.
So you have wisdom. And that is knowing what's within your control and what's out of your control.
Yeah.
Focusing on what's in your control, your actions and your emotions. Mm-hmm. That's number 1. Then you have courage. Action in the face of adversity. That's all it is. That's Stoic courage, is action in the face of adversity. Okay, this has made me feel good, and I'm a little fearful, but I'm still going to commit to what I decided to do, because this is action in the face of adversity. If I get on the side of this adversity right here, it'll be nice to be smooth sailing for a little while.
Yeah.
You know, right? So that is action in the face of adversity. Justice. Now, this is one that we as men, this masculine men, that we want to fight. Treating other people with respect, kindness, and dignity, despite how they treat you, despite the disrespect they throw at you, despite how they yell at you, scream at you, you still treat them with kindness, dignity, respect. Not for them.
Yeah.
For you, because it brings you peace. Because the moment that you escalate that situation, you may end up getting in trouble. You may end up getting your ass handed by someone that you don't know is better than you, or someone decides to pull a gun on you.
Or you've also lowered yourself to their level.
Exactly. Right. And on the other side of that too, it's not just treating other people with kindness, dignity, respect. It's treating yourself with kindness, dignity, respect. A lot of people don't realize it's okay to be kind to yourself. You don't have to be so fucking hard on yourself all the time. And, I didn't meet that standard today. Okay, great. You know what? What did you do today? I always tell every man or woman I meet, I talk to, they're having a bad day, strive to go to bed a better person than when you woke up. And that could be 1,000 things. It doesn't have to be because, I gave a homeless guy a fucking sandwich and filmed it myself recording on Instagram or whatever it is. What it is that every little bit that you do to better yourself makes you go to bed a better person. It's not about how much massive improvement. It's consistency. And it's saying, I did an extra push-up today.
Yeah.
I did 10 yesterday. I did 11 today. I bettered myself. And so therefore I should feel good about it. I should enjoy that moment. I should say I'm good. Not I didn't do 12 and now I feel like shit. No.
Yeah.
I did 11 today. I did 10 yesterday. I did 9 the day before. Okay, I go to bed a better person. So treating other people with kindness, dignity, and respect, regardless. That's seeking virtue. That's seeking happiness through virtue. That is going, I could have been an asshole, but I chose not to, and I feel better for not being an asshole.
Yeah.
That stimulates a dopamine response, a serotonin response, and then treating yourself with kindness, not being so fucking hard on yourself. And I'm talking to the veterans here, they're watching this. Stop being so fucking hard on yourself. There's a lot of things in your past that you can't control. You have to accept that, but love the things that happened in your past, because things that happened in your past, like for instance, my daughter, beautiful creature I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm a little biased, but she's my whole world. And everything that has happened in the past has had to happen the way it's happened, how it happened, the time it happened, the events that happened, all had to happen for my daughter to come in this world, to be there. So if I love my daughter, I have to love every single fucking thing that I despise about myself in the past, about the history, everything that bad happened, bad or good, I have to love because I love my daughter. If I regret anything in my past, that means I regret my daughter, and fuck that, I love my daughter, right? Yeah. So we have to give ourselves a little bit of reprieve and say, look, I was just talking to a doc one time, a corpsman. He had survivor's guilt. He couldn't save a few people and say, look, that's the way things happened. You can't change that. And you hating yourself for it doesn't change the past. It just robs you of the present. You want to fucking do something for the people that you couldn't save? You fucking live good now. You fucking stop beating yourself up and you start fucking living now, because you picked up where they left off. So now it's your job. If you really want to honor them and you want to make amends because you couldn't save them, start living the fucking life that they would want to live, that they would want you to live. They would say, be fucking happy. It's okay. I volunteer. Okay, I died and you couldn't save me. It was my time.
Yeah.
It's fucking God's time right there. You know, it's your time to go. It's your time to go. Ain't no one going to fucking stop. Nothing's going to happen, right? When it's your time to go, you're going to go. Ain't going to stop. So live the life that they would want you to live. Ask yourself, well, how would Johnson want me to live? Or how would, you know, whoever it is that passed away or died in combat, or whoever it is that I couldn't cover enough in time, how would they want me to live? And live that life. That's how you live. So when it comes to justice, be kind to yourself. It's okay. You know, move forward. And lastly, temperance. Temperance is one of those things. It's moderation in all things. Moderation, restraint, moderation in alcohol, moderation in food, moderation in how you treat others, moderation in how you treat yourself, moderation in your politics, your philosophies, your beliefs. Don't be so caught up in one extreme or the other that you lose sight of rationality and logic. Unfortunately, we take into politics. Either you're all one side or you're all the other.
Right.
I've been called a fence sitter. You know, you know what? Fuck, I'd rather sit on a fence with a fucking post up my ass than sit here and be ignorant of one side or the other. I want to see things from all sides because I value rationality.
The terms that people create.
Oh my God. People have asked me, are you Republican or Democrat? I said, I'm a radical centrist. Because I love sitting in the middle. Yeah. Being radical doesn't mean I'm going to commit violence. What I mean is I'm fiercely independent. I'm fiercely central. Because if I take Stoic philosophy, if I want to find virtue, if I want to find happiness through virtue, I want to use reason and logic, and moderation helps achieve that reason and logic rather than emotion. One side thinks with way too much emotion, one side thinks with too much religion, and one side's standard of morality is emotion, one side's standard of morality is for religion. But you have all these different religions who have different morality, different virtues and ethics and moralities. So you have to go, okay, this is great, this is great, this is fucking batshit crazy, this is batshit crazy. Where do I find reason and logic in the middle? And that's where I want to be. That's where I always want to be, because I want to be my own man. I want to take these ideas, beautiful ideas both sides have, and I want to take away some of the batshit crazy ideas both sides has and goes, what makes me a cosmopolitan? Cosmopolitan is no matter where you are in the universe, you're home. You're a citizen of the cosmos. And that's what we should all kind of look at each other as goes, I'm a cosmopolitan, because I find that my common man, I want to live for the good of the common man, right? And we look at these things like hive minds, these hive minds. You know, I often talk about, social independence, being able to draw yourself away from society. That doesn't mean you're antisocial. It doesn't mean you hate people. In fact, to try and be socially independent means that you have a love of your fellow man, because what you're doing is you're taking yourself away from the hive mind and you're going, I don't want to be in here. I don't want to be in this society. I don't want to be in this area where they think this way. I don't have to think this way. And what happens, you're experiencing now. What happens when you step away from the hive mind of what everyone thinks you should think? You become exiled.
You get attacked.
Exiled. You get attacked. Because how dare you? How dare you step away from everything that we believe? And when you step away from that, you're a threat. You become persona non grata. The Stoics, every time they pissed a fucking Roman emperor off, guess what happened to them? They all got fucking exiled. They all got exiled. They all got exiled. Musonius Rufus said, so you got exiled. So you got exiled from your town. Well, what is exile today? Cancel culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's social exile. And a lot of people fear the social exile. A lot of people fear cancel culture because they fear this fear goes back to our days as tribal members, right? Back before, before philosophy, when we were hanging out in tribes and cutting spears and throwing them at mastodons and shit like that, right? What happens if you were exiled from that tribe?
You die.
Your death. We still carry that fear with us because we're social creatures. We've always been social creatures. If we're not part of the tribe, we're dead.
The hard part about cancel culture now, though, they destroy you financially, which you might as well be dead. You lose your career. You lose your finances. You lose people lose full careers, and that's the craziest thing. Like, I don't care too much because I feel like I've solidified myself in a space where financially I can always maintain, but it's crazy how they attack people and destroy their lives.
That is the true test of adversity, is when you lose something that you're passionate about, when you lose your job. Because what did Dave Chappelle say? He said, taking away a man's job is akin to killing him.
Yeah.
But if we look at that adversity through the Stoic lens and say, okay, so I lost my job. The people that I worked for buckled under the pressure of a group of bullies.
Yeah.
Right. Because today cancel culture is basically, if you don't think like I do,
yeah,
then you're wrong. And when it comes to that, you look at that and go, yeah, it sucks. Okay. I can't make really money right now. I'm not making the money I was.
Yeah.
And we fear that. We fear not being able to make money. But there's always something out there that you'll find.
Yeah.
And sometimes you look at that situation and go, okay, what's this gift of adversity that I've experienced? I've lost my job, or, beyond cancel culture, we look at, losing a car, or losing this, or losing that, or something happening. It's adversity. Whatever adversity we go to is a gift. And when you unwrap that gift becomes mental resilience. It becomes character development. And so everything hurts right off the bat, no matter what. We don't like adversity because our perception of it.
Yeah.
The Stoics talk about mind your perception. Whether it's bad or good has nothing to, an event happens. Whether it's bad or good is your perception of it. Right? So you do lose your job. Of course, the implications are, I lose my money, and I'm not going to be able to, what am I going to do now? I'm not going to be able to feed my family, right? We freak out because our emotions are getting a hold of us. We tend to forget that we've made this far in life, and this is just one career, one job that exists, right?
Yeah.
All right, maybe someone might not hire me later down the road because of this incident, but there's someone else there that might go like, fuck yeah, I'll hire you. Fuck those douchebags, right? I like that shit. Yeah, and I'm going to pay you more too, and you're going to like this job. There's always opportunity out there. You just have to mind your perception, mind your emotions about it, and stop shitting your pants. People are going to say what they're going to say about you, and there's nothing that you can do about it. There's nothing, you know what? And they can say what they want. Fine. But when you let them control your emotions, they now control your actions. The human emotion is a colorful palette for a picture, for you to paint a picture with. And when you let people control your emotions, they have control of your paintbrush, and they paint a picture of you that you may not like. So you have to maintain control of your emotions, and then you're able to control your actions. I mean, look at the people that double down on cancel culture now. They say, fuck it. You know what? Doubling down.
Yeah.
I'm not, it is what it is. And they tend to just, okay, well, move on. You don't scare that easily, and then you move on. Well, when you gain control of your emotions and understand, hey, things are going to work out. Things are always going to work out. They're going to work out because you have the coping mechanisms and the tools that you forged in the furnace of adversity that you're going to continue on.
Yeah.
That's going to be okay. You just got to remember that.
Love it, dude. Love it. We're at 1:08, man. Dude, that was fast.
That was fast, yeah.
Dude, in that camera, do you want to tell people where they can get a hold of you? They have any questions with Stoicism or just anything when it comes to the Gray Man Project or everything else you do?
Yeah. Anybody that wants to find me, you can find me just on Instagram, grayman.project. Gray, like the American way, GRAYMAN.project. And then for any of those that just want to talk, reach out. I'm just a jackass with a stupid following that got lucky. So I'm not one of those guys that I'm not unreachable. I do check, if, I don't like drama too much. I try and stay away from it. So don't bring some drama to my fucking table. But if you have a legit problem or, dealing with something or have a question or just kind of going through some shit you need someone to talk to, I'm always happy to help. I'm always happy to give you an intro to Stoicism or give you a different thought, maybe peel open the books together and we'll find an answer in there.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. For my sponsors, don't forget, Core Medical Group is hormone replacement therapy. You guys, if you're curious, I can get you a number. You guys can get your blood work done. We got GMR Gold, which has bullion boxes, subscription-based model for gold and precious metals, as well as we have Modern Gun School. Modern Gun School is a at-home armor certification you can take. You can use your GI Bill. You can use your Voc Rehab. I highly recommend it. If you're not doing nothing with it, why not learn how to build and fix guns at the comfort of your own home? As well as we have Everest.com. It is a outdoors trading post. You guys can find anything you need for the outdoor environments and world. You guys go check them out at Everest.com. Thank you so much. Don't forget my book. Don't forget to follow my guest, as well as thank you for supporting us. Go like and subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're definitely trying to build that up. So thank you for following. Thank you for listening, and I love you. Later.